Welcome back. If you were here last time, welcome back. If you're here for your first time, thanks for coming. This is Flips Night 2. Public safety, there's a good title for this, right? But tonight's about public safety and reimagining what community looks like. We have got an incredible panel of people. They're going to take their seats in a moment as I introduce them. But before we get to that, I need to thank a few people. First, I need to thank Lisa Lewis for all her hard work in putting this together. I need to thank Sam Larson and Mike Ford for all their hard work putting this. I need to thank all the students that showed up, extra credit or not. Give you all a couple of snaps there, if you will. There you go. And then the Weihing Flip students and Sarah Smithis Hansen, my boss. Ooh. All right, now, the panel this evening is Chief Heiman from the Oshkosh Fire Department, Chief Smith from the Oshkosh Police Department, DA Eric Sparr from the Winnebago County District Attorney's Office, Sheriff Matz from the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, Patzer from the State Public Defender's Office. I knew that. I was just looking to make sure I didn't get anything. Galen Weihing, the director of the Connect Center, former DA Center, DA Analyst, and Court Commissioner Eric Heywood. So if we give them all a round of applause while they take it. I don't think I didn't notice you stood up first. Thank you for leading the charge. They were never going to move with someone with them before that thing.
I'm used to moving.
All right, for the Weihing and Flips folks at 6:58, 6:55, I'm gonna bring down Amanda and Aspen to collect all of you. Then we're gonna go upstairs. One last note, there's an ice feeling circle tomorrow in exactly 24 hours, 23 and a half hours now. You're welcome to go to that too. Cool. Question before we get rolling. Good work. I'm just you feel like you had a question. No. All right, now this is everybody's favorite question, and I know everybody loves talking about themselves, so we're gonna clap where you get when we're done. But starting with Sheriff Matz all the way on the end. Introduce yourself, tell us about your current position and what your day-to-day look.
Okay, Sheriff John Matz. I have been the sheriff for the last, this is my 16th year. So it's a 4-year term. This is my 4th term. I haven't officially announced, but I will be retiring at the end of this term. So you will have a new sheriff to vote for. I urge you to look at qualifications when you do that. It is a political position and it's partisan politics. However, it is, we don't play partisan politics in law enforcement. It's what's best for the 173,000 people that we represent, and what's best for a particular section of people. I am a UWO alum. Way back in the day, this didn't even exist. So there's parking lot or something. I don't really recall. But day to day is very different. It can be the hiring of new deputies. It can be disciplinary issues. It can be budget. It can be the snowstorm that we just had. It can be a serious investigation. There's all kinds of different things. So it is very unique. So the sheriff is responsible for not just the patrol division, the detectives, but also jail. We have a 355-bed jail, and we also run the communication center, which we dispatch all of law enforcement and fire agencies within the county. So it's a great job, but you get very spread thin, but learn how to deal with that throughout time.
Tim Heiman, I'm the fire chief for the city of Oshkosh. Relatively new. I'll have a year. April 1st, I got promoted April Fool's Day last year. So that's a little inside joke, I think. I'm a non-elected position, so recommended by the city manager and then approved through the Police and Fire Commission, which is a separate entity that basically runs the fire department. So that's our kind of our boss is Police and Fire Commission. As far as the day-to-day basis, to kind of echo what the sheriff said, a big variety of things that we do from day to day, whether it's administrative level things with budgeting, purchasing, staffing, emergency services. So with the fire department, we also run EMS, which is emergency medical services. Actually, that's the bulk of what we do, about 80%. So healthcare, running the ambulances. We have paramedics on each ambulance, so managing that area as well. And then another area that we're in is emergency management. So as the fire chief, I'm also the emergency manager for the city of Oshkosh. So making sure that we're getting all our city staff trained and proper etiquette for handling those type of things if we would have a major disaster. So really, no day is the same, and that's kind of what makes this job interesting.
And I'm Brianne Patzer. I work in the public defender's office. So first, I'm going to let them know today is actually what we call Gideon Day. It's the 63rd anniversary of the decision that allowed individuals who are indigent to have counsel appointed for them. So it's a big day and kind of highlights what my office does. I work in the Oshkosh office. We're a state agency though. So I'm the local attorney manager in the Oshkosh office. My office is part of our trial division. The state public defender in Wisconsin is different than some other states in that we are a state agency. So we have an appellate division and a trial division and then a leadership team. So I'm part of the trial division in the Oshkosh office, which is part of the Fond du Lac region, but I'm the local attorney manager. So I oversee the staff attorneys in my office, appointment of counsel through our office, and then I also help with some of the administrative tasks to make sure people are found eligible and have the ability to have counsel. So we have a lot of different things that we handle within our office, but essentially we represent indigent individuals in a number of cases. We do criminal, which is kind of what everyone thinks about for a public defender, but we also represent individuals who are subject to involuntary mental health commitments, guardianships that are combined with protective placements, juvenile offenders, children in need of protection and services who are over the age of 12. We act as adversary counsel for them. We represent parents who are facing termination of their parental rights. So we handle a large variety of things through our office. To do my role, I went to undergrad, but then I did 3 years of law school. I went to Marquette here in Wisconsin, and a big shout out to the Wisconsin law schools that have diploma privilege. When I got done with my 3 years, I was able to start in a job right away without having to take the bar. I have lots of attorneys in my office who have taken the bar. It's possible, but I think it's a great advantage to Wisconsin. So I just want to give a shout out for that. Just to answer some of the questions that we kind of were given before too. My undergrad was like sociology based, but if anyone's thinking about going to law school, there's lots of things you can do. And I wished I had done something more writing intense. So if anyone's thinking about that, it's great to do like English, something that gives you a lot of writing skills, but that's technically sociology. I had a minor in psychology. And then I went on to law school, and criminal defense was kind of what I wanted to do the whole way. And I always wanted to work in the public defender's office. I interned in undergrad, so that's possible to do. And then I interned in law school, and then I continued on when I was able to once I graduated. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, my name is Dean Smith. As you know, I'm the chief of police here in the city of Oshkosh. I've been here in Oshkosh. I'm on my 11th year. I'm a transplant from the East Coast. 37 years in law enforcement. I came from Virginia when I was hired as a chief of police here in Oshkosh. My day typically nowadays is a lot of mentoring and coaching, where I spend a lot of time talking to younger police officers. I spend a lot of time talking with my supervisors, my leaders. We do a lot of leadership development for first line supervisors. We spend a lot of time just talking about how we're going to solve problems throughout the day. You may or may not know, but the Oshkosh Police Department, we believe heavily in our team policing model, where we spend a lot of time solving small problems within the community. It helps us, I think, to be effective. One of the things that we're very proud of in Oshkosh is that we're the only nationally accredited law enforcement agency in the state of Wisconsin, a municipal law enforcement agency in the state of Wisconsin. That is something that's hard to do. But we've been that way since 1994, and we're very happy with what that does for us. Essentially, it helps guide us in our policies. It helps guide us in how we operate on a day-to-day basis, and it gives us a more national view of law enforcement. We're also state accredited, but we believe that our national accreditation gives us a more national view of what we do. as I mentioned, we spend a lot of time just trying to develop our police officers. We have a young force. I probably have 80% of my staff is less than 5 years on the Oshkosh Police Department. Government work is kind of cyclical, especially in law enforcement and fire service. When firefighters and police officers get to that retirement age, they have to make a big decision. Do they want to stay or do they want to go? And we just worked our way through our retirement cycle. So we've done a lot of hiring of police officers. And I'm very happy to say that we're actually overhired. We're full, which is kind of unheard of in law enforcement agencies across the state. And we just really appreciate having you all here today to ask us questions. Thank you.
All right. I'm Eric Sparr, DA for Winnebago County. I've been in that position for about 4 years. I've been a prosecutor in the office for coming up on 21 years. So like Attorney Patzer, I was in state for law school. I went to University of Wisconsin, so I did not have to take the bar. I agree with her. That is very handy. And it's one of those things where I have no credibility when I say this, but it seems like a waste of time because people do pass it eventually, but it certainly delays their start if they have to go through that. So that was handy for me. And actually after my second year of law school, before my third year, I had interned in this same office. I was familiar with where I was going to be going and just wanted to get started. So I was able to do that. What we do primarily is take cases from law enforcement that they have investigated, they've either made an arrest or have determined that there's probable cause for a crime. They send those cases to us, we review them, make a charging decision, then follow that case representing the state through the criminal court process. So we have some things that aren't criminal, but that's the majority of what we're doing. So we are on the opposing side of a case from Attorney Patzer, and we are appearing in court in front of people like Commissioner Heywood. We have, I guess he'll probably get into this a little bit, but he is the only court commissioner that we typically appear in front of. There are a couple of other court commissioners in the county that don't generally do a lot of criminal cases other than when they're occasionally filling in for him. There are 6 judges in Winnebago County that we appear in front of, and they all do criminal cases. We have 12 lawyers in our office, about 30 employees total. So all of those lawyers do some sort of casework. It varies as we get to a DA's office of this size, as opposed to an office of 1 or 2 lawyers, also very different than an office of 100 plus lawyers. The elected prosecutor could really have any sort of a role. It could be administrative, where it's a management position, not a case handling position. It could be a situation where you're in court all the time. Mine's a little bit in the middle somewhere. I don't do as many cases as I used to, but I still do enough that I'm pretty familiar with the people who are involved with law enforcement. And I think that's a good fit for a county like this. But a typical day, because of that, for me, generally involves a little bit of court, probably at least 3 of the days each week I'm in court a little bit. There is a lot of time that's spent reviewing cases to get them ready for court. But for my role, the thing that is different than what the other lawyers in my office do is I have a little bit more of the interactions with people outside of our office. So if there's an issue that it comes up between law enforcement and our office as far as getting cases to us, that's probably something that I'll end up involved with as far as trying to get it resolved. Or similarly, if there's an issue that has something to do with the judges or the court commissioner, I probably end up involved in that. So that's one thing that's a little different between my position and the others in my office.
I'm Caitlin Wine. I was the crime data analyst for the Winnebago County District Attorney's Office. I am now, as Matt said before, the special program supervisor for the Connect program in Winnebago County. But I think tonight I'm here to talk about my position as the crime data analyst. So I've been with the office about 5 years. This position, the crime data analyst position, didn't technically exist, I think, prior to my starting, or it did in a very different way. So the position itself is a lot of what you would expect from a data analyst. So the majority of my days are analyzing data. And so what that means is I'm looking at a lot of the trends for our office, right? So cases that are coming into the office, how cases are moving through the office, how our prosecutors are handling those cases. That's a big part of what I do. And then I also happen to look at programming. So part of our office is assigned to a diversion unit, and that is technically where my position is housed. And we divert individuals out of the criminal justice system. That is the goal of the diversion unit. So we offer programs both pre-charge and post-charge. So individuals prior to their case actually hitting CCAP, they can participate in a diversion, or after their case hits CCAP. But the goal is to prevent them returning to the criminal justice system by participating in these programs. So that's a big part of what I do. I analyze how those programs are functioning, whether or not they're working the way that we hope they are. And if they're not, then we try to improve them, or we move on to a different type of programming. So my background is actually in psychology. So I am a product of UWO. So I got my bachelor's degree in Bachelor's of Science in Psychology here, and then my master's in Science in Psychology here as well. And I guess what I would say about that, it seems like an odd fit for a data analyst, but the programs that I was in were very focused on research and statistics. And so those two skills in particular are very useful as a data analyst, especially in this office, because we had to sort of create this position, and that is what the position looks like now. That's not to say that the position might not change if someone else were to hold the position. I think the position in and of itself is a reflection of the person that's in it.
I'm Eric Heywood. By day, I'm Judicial Court Commissioner, which is why you invited me here. Exactly. And I know you from down the hall that by night, I'm an adjunct here. So it's nice to see several of my current and former students from the Criminal Justice Department. So as Judicial Court Commissioner, I'm appointed by the judges to hear and decide cases in court. I have some of their judicial authority. About 80% of cases filed in Winnebago County start in front of me. So that's about 18,000 cases. A lot of the smaller cases like traffic, forfeiture, underage drinking, small claims cases, juvenile tickets will resolve in front of me. The larger cases, any case where someone's detained, whether it's a criminal case, a juvenile's removed out of their home, mental health or guardianship, those will start in front of me and then proceed in front of the judge for some of the more major decisions. I started college classes here at UW Oshkosh, graduated UW-Madison with a degree in math, which I use very infrequently other than calculating percentages, which I didn't have to go to college to do. And then I stayed at UW to get my law degree. And it might not be a waste of time to take the bar, but it certainly is a waste of money, because for 3 months, other than paying for a bar exam class, to pay to study for a bar and not being paid, we were able to start working right away. So maybe it's not a waste of time in the end, but it's about 3 months sooner that you're able to start working with diploma privilege. So that's the more math, a little bit of my math use. So
He was gonna sneak it in some. He was gonna sneak it in some.
right, say some percentage. I won't do any calculus today. So my day-to-day goes from deciding something as minor as a $10 seatbelt ticket to as major as, so like for today, for example, today I had some $10 seatbelt tickets, and I had felonies where people are in custody facing decades, if not more, in prison. And in between, I have juvenile placement hearings, I have eviction hearings, vehicle repossession, garnishment of wages, traffic tickets, underage drinking forfeiture tickets, and guardianship tickets. So most of my job, I'm in court hearing and deciding cases, and some of the additional time I'm out of court, either signing warrants or other orders, similar to what a judge would do.
Oh, so nobody likes talking about themselves, so we give them all around. Now we're gonna snake back down to the sheriff. What drew you to public service in the first place? Good. Oh no, we're starting over here. We'll get.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want you to go first each time. That doesn't seem.
That's
Right.
fair. I appreciate
what drew you to public service in the first place?
Well, I started as a math major, and then I went into private practice. And when I was a math major, I thought, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to go to business school or med school. I decided right as I was graduating, never mind, I'll change course. And I went to law school, and I said, I want to do something with business or technology. I don't want to do criminal law or family law, and I don't think I want to do much in court. And all that went by the way.
It's all you do now.
I started in private practice, and I liked the law a lot, but I just liked the business of having to deal with the money aspect. I was more interested in the justice aspect and how the law affected real people. And that kind of, and in between, I worked as an AmeriCorps with Habitat for Humanity. So these ideas of math and numbers and helping people didn't quite sink until I realized public service was both of those. It was the logical thought in the law about how to help people with actually the hands-on, those cases that I wasn't originally drawn to, criminal, family violations. Those are the things that have the biggest societal impact. So I realized I don't want to spend 6 months working for Google arguing about if the font should be a little different or something. I want to help people with real life situations, whether that's housing, whether that's victims affected by crime, whether that's people facing loss of liberty. What drew me to public service is kind of recognizing numbers eventually became not that interesting. Helping people was what really was my passion, and public service was the best way to do that.
So taking me back again, that question like.
No, I was just like, are you great?
I'm just making notes.
I just
What you're doing great.
Go ahead. All right.
Caitlin, what drew you to public service? Follow that.
I feel like you're grading us.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that my initial intention out of grad school was not to get involved in public service. Not that I didn't want to, but like that was not the intention coming out of school. I had actually wanted to stay in academia. So my first job out of grad school was working actually as the Associate Director of Research Administration up at Lawrence. And then I ended up back at UWO because I just couldn't stay away. And then after that, the crime data analyst position came open, and what I really wanted to do was do research. That has been the goal for as long as I can remember. I find it extremely fascinating, and this position seemed to align with that. And at the same time, I get to help people. That was the other big component of what I wanted to do. I wanted to understand people. I wanted to help them improve their lives, and especially, you know, in the position that I'm in, we get to help some of the most vulnerable citizens in our community, right? And so I think that that's sort of the hook that caught me in this position, is that the programming that we work on helps that population, and I get to design programming to do that. So yeah, that's what kept me, I should say.
All right. Well, I don't really have some sort of inspirational, selfless explanation of why I'm in public
It's a
service.
job.
This is the low, it's at the low, onto your feet.
But I mean, for me, I started law school and it was pretty clear that criminal law was the most interesting thing to me. It's just people doing crazy things, and it was fun stories, and that 21 years later remains true. But I felt like I could have been on either side of it, and the one thing that really, I guess to start with, if you're working in criminal law, most people that are doing that are working for the government. So either as prosecutors or as public defenders. There aren't a crazy number of criminal defense attorneys. A lot of them are getting cases from either the public defender's office or the courts, even if they are working privately, because a lot of people who are committing crimes don't have money. And so there's not a tremendous market out there for private paying clients. So we do see a lot of people who are involved in criminal law work for the government or are being essentially paid by the government to do that work. But I guess for me, I still at times feel like I could have done either one. I think a lot of people that are good at either of these jobs probably could be on either side. But I guess the big one for me is when you see what looks like the right answer to a situation. I think there are a lot less obstacles to that from the prosecution side. And if that sounds scary, it probably should be, because what that means is it's really important, the people that you have in these positions. A charging decision, for example, has a really big impact. What sort of an offer that a prosecutor makes has a really big impact. So the decision-making and the people that are in those spots, that becomes really important. And also it becomes really rewarding to be part of that, because it's one of those things where the things that you're doing, the decisions that you're making are really impactful for people. And the hope is that that's impactful in a positive way for the community. But there's always risk when you're making decisions like that.
So for me, getting into law enforcement, there's actually, I've been told there's a picture of me in about 3 years old riding a police motorcycle. It's something that has always been something that I wanted to do. In Virginia, you couldn't be a police officer until you turned 21. So I had a period of time that I had to figure out what I was going to do, and I always felt out of place. I always felt like I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing. And when I became a police officer, it all came together for me. It was my passion. It was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And truly, it sounds like a cliche, but if you do something you enjoy doing, it's not really work. It's what you are. It's what you do. And I still love doing what I do. My role and responsibilities obviously have changed over the years, but being able to impact the community, being able to solve problems within the community, being able to help people work through whatever may come before them. I get excited about that still after the years that I've done in law enforcement. So it's really not even a job. It's fun to do it.
What drew me to public service was actually I met a juvenile probation agent in Illinois. I grew up in Illinois. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I thought she was changing all these youth's lives. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. And my mom said, I think you should be a lawyer. I said, okay, I'll think about it. And then my professor in undergrad actually was steering me towards the law. And he said, I have 2 internships, but you have to do an internship to graduate. I can have you do work with a traffic attorney for 10 hours a week, or the public defender's office in Milwaukee for 30 hours a week. And I said, I'll do the traffic one, please. And he said, actually, I'm not going to let you do that. So he made me go into the public defender's office, and it was the best choice. It was the guiding that I got from my professor.
It's good to know that we're never wrong. That if you take nothing away, let that be it.
What drew me to that internship wasn't necessarily where I decided I was going to do this job. But I think when you do something like that, where you're surrounded by all of these public safety individuals who are doing public service work, you see people who are working extremely hard, but what keeps us all here is the impact and the meaning of the work we do. So I did private practice briefly when there was a hiring freeze in the public defender's office. And so I had to do private practice for a little while. I sleep easy every night with the job that I do. I'm exhausted, but I know that the work that I do has meaning. So that's what keeps me in the job that I do.
I actually started originally, went to college at a sociology major and a psychology minor. I was either going to go into law enforcement or corrections, and started an internship, which was on 3rd and Wells in Milwaukee. If you're familiar with that area, the Milwaukee Fire Department's headquarters is located right next to that building. And I was on the 15th floor or something, and every day I'd look down and see the fire trucks pull out. And, the guys working down there, and actually, it was through the Department of Corrections, and the person who was working there, her husband actually worked for the Milwaukee Fire Department. So she saw me looking out the window one day and said, that looks like a pretty cool job. Why don't you come down and meet my husband? So I went down there, talked to him. I always wanted to do something with, working with people. And kind of the thing that really drove it home is 9/11 happened when I was there as well. And to see the way that the community rallied around a public safety entity like the fire department, didn't matter what side of the political aisle you were on, didn't matter people that were arguing like cats and dogs the day before, kind of all rallied around that. I think to be a part of an organization that kind of transcends sides of the aisle, I think was a really neat thing to see, and that's really what drew me kind of going to the fire department.
I saw some really cool cop shows and thought, you wouldn't remember any of them. But it wasn't like cops now. It's like all actors and stuff.
On horses.
And not on horses, no. Squad cars, the old 40-pound Vicks. But and then once I started the job, I was hooked. There's about 10% adrenaline dumping, really cool stuff. And then there's, all the paperwork, and then there's just absolute boredom. But that boredom ends when the radio call comes in and it's something just absolutely crazy. And just when you think you've seen it all, you have not. And we had an instructor come to talk to us a few years ago, and the average person has 2 traumatic events happen in their life. Like one of my off-duty deputies had a female jump off of the overpass right in front of his car, and he pulled her off the roadway. He was not working at the time. That's a traumatic event, right? You have 2 of those for normal people. In law enforcement and in fire as well, depending upon the size of the agency, you have 200 to 400. So although they're traumatic, they are just so sometimes bizarre that you get hooked on the bizarre. I guess. So definitely help people along the way. That's a really cool part. But what drew me to it was it looked fun, and it is fun.
All right, so you guys already answered the education question, well done. But I do want to like drill down into the WISAC stuff, because the premise of WISAC is that good governance requires people to trust their government and trust one another. What do you all see as the current state of government trust amongst the population? And what can public service professionals do to improve that level of trust? We'd have to go down the line again, if anybody's got a burning answer to that question.
I think it depends upon what level of government. Are we talking federal government, state government, or local government? And we as leaders in local government and in these positions need to be responsive and transparent. You may not agree with what we're doing, but you will know what we're doing. And you can voice your opinion, and we may make changes based on some of the input that we get, or we may not. But you will know what we're doing. We won't hide anything. And I think if all levels of government would do that, we would restore the public trust at all levels. But I'm not sure that we're quite ready for that.
I think as it relates to local government and law enforcement, community trust is so incredibly important in what we do. There's not enough police officers in the country to keep everybody safe. A lot of what we do within the city of Oshkosh is working towards building that trust. And as the sheriff said, you may not always agree with what we do, but we're going to base all of our decisions on doing the best for the community, following the law, and making sure that we come to some good solutions. One of the things that I share with folks a lot, if they want to come and speak individually with me, is if you have a complaint about law enforcement in general, because that's a thing that happens. It's like a big cycle. People love cops, and then they don't like cops, and then they love cops. It goes back and forth. When you look at the city of Oshkosh, I hope that you look at what we do and judge us based upon the work that we do here in the city of Oshkosh. We've had folks that come into the city, and they've come from other parts of the country, and they're imprinted with whatever experiences they had elsewhere. And as a local government official, I want you to look at what we do here in the city of Oshkosh and judge us and evaluate us on what we do here locally, because that's truly what you have. And if we're not getting it right, we're going to work to get it right. But I can't control what happens in Los Angeles or New York City or anywhere else. I control what happens in 26 square miles for law enforcement in the city of Oshkosh. So that's really important for us, that you, as a local government entity, evaluate us on what you see us do and not what others do.
I want to go back to the transparency thing, and I think it's important both on like an individual case or situation level, where we want you to be able to see what's happening in the courtroom. What was the decision-making process looking like on a particular case, to the degree that it's possible to share that, to be able to get access to documents. So for example, when a reporter is trying to get access to a criminal complaint, I want to eliminate the barriers to that so that they can get easy access to these things. But then also on kind of a zoomed out level, to be able to say, okay, what does the picture look like for all of the cases of that type that came into the system, to increase public access to that sort of data. And then I'd say not just for our county, because it's one thing if you could look at it for us, but I want to give you the context, if possible, of what's happening in surrounding counties as well. So that, and I think the data thing is, and when we're talking about kind of the broader picture, is something that has really developed over time, especially over the last 10 or 15 years. And we can do things now because of everything being digital, because of everything being on computers, and because there's more of an emphasis on it. And that was stuff that we just couldn't have done 10 plus years ago.
I think something that erodes trust is when a person has what seems like a simple question, but it's a complex answer. And maybe there's the DOT joke of like, hey, can you move the cone? Be like, well, I'm not the cone person, I'm the line person. But actually in court, our roles are a lot like that. So I'm commissioner now, I worked as prosecutor for a while, worked as defense attorneys. I think for individuals that are defendants or victims, they have a question that they want answered. And there isn't always one person they could go to that would have a complete answer. A lot of times the answer is, I can't answer that for you. And I think that erodes trust. And something that I try to do is at least explain to someone briefly why I can't answer that and try to point them to the person that can answer it. But I think that takes away trust when people are like, this is a big system, it's complex, nobody's giving me a straight answer. And like other interactions with the system, as a defendant or as a victim or something else, the system isn't going to listen to me. So at least listening to someone's question, answering if I can, telling them where they could get that answer, or explaining something so they feel heard, even if I don't decide how they wanted me to.
Anybody else? And then I got another banger of a question. So cool. We got a bunch of young people. I want you to tell them the advice you wish you would have had when you started, however many years ago that might be. We'll start with Caitlin, and I had to it down a lot, and I did it with Heywood.
Started in this position, like like the advice that I would give starting in this position.
I want them to have the advice you wish you would have had at any point, because right now they need more advice than they know.
I would say, so it's funny, this is a question that has come up in another instance recently. And I think there's a phrase that I found recently. I recently took up running. And so I'm trying. And one of the phrases that has come up is get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? There are going to be lots of situations as you move forward that are scary, right? You're going to have to do new things. You're going to have to learn new things. And that will be so humbling along the way. And I think it's important to realize that it's okay to have a little bit of discomfort because that's where we grow, right? This position that I took, there was no script, there was no outline, and we had to build it. That was very scary. I was terrified of failing, but we did it, right? There were stumbling blocks along the way. And I think that we also have to recognize that that's okay too, right? One tiny failure doesn't mean we've failed entirely. It just means that we have to take a step back, we have to regroup, and then start building again. And so I think getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and not being so afraid. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to move forward. You'll get there.
That's what you said?
I do want to go.
All right. No, for me, I would say the thing I would tell you to do, you're doing by being here right now. To get exposed to a bunch of stuff that can inform you on what you do like, what you are interested in, and what you want nothing to do with. I was good at math, and this is a bad cross section of the attorney population in this area because
the only two attorneys that are good at math.
we are the only two. So there's always a joke.
Let's do that.
Like, you guys have no idea what my math skills are.
Give a guess. But it's because lawyers always joke about this. They say, well, I'm a lawyer, I don't do math. And I think the only two that are in at least the criminal justice realm in this area that kind of say, oh, wait a minute, hang on. But my degree is computer engineering. And I got way too far along on that before I really stopped and thought, hang on, is this really what I want to be doing? And it was because I wasn't doing stuff like this. I wasn't going and looking at, well, what is my life really going to be like? What is it like to do a job in this profession that I'm just blindly hurtling towards? And I didn't look into it. And I think I would have figured it out a lot sooner if I had. So I don't like the pressure that's put on people, especially like at the high school age, but even beginning of college, to have it all figured out. But I think that the pressure should be to do this kind of stuff and experience it, learn what's interesting and what's not, and figure it out from there.
DA Sparr is actually spelled person for flip, so.
So I guess for me, my advice to myself or to others when they first start out in law enforcement is do a lot of listening and a lot of observing. I learned a lot of leadership skills, both from who I thought were really good leaders and those who were not very good leaders. And if I paid attention to what each of those brought to the table, I learned what I think I wanted to do. And I also learned a lot of things that didn't work well for others. And it's okay to pay attention to those who you may not necessarily like as a leader, or you think they're not doing a great job, because you learn a lot from them that you don't want to do, because you don't want to make the mistakes that others have done around you. So listening to what others are doing around you, paying attention, and especially in law enforcement, the reality is when you become a brand new police officer, you do a lot of listening, and without a lot of talking, because you have a lot of cops that are going to tell you how to do the job. And you have to take bits and pieces of the good and the bad that they're giving to you, and then develop your own methodology of doing law enforcement and how you interact with the community. I think the true test of that is really how your community reacts to you individually. When I was a young patrol officer, I had many folks who would they wave at me as I was going down the street because I was just normal with them. Even folks that I would arrest, they would send me letters, thank you for helping me get my life back in order. Or if, arrest somebody and a week later, hey Smith, how's it going? And he's waving at you on the street because you treat people with respect. And I learned that from others around me, that's the way you do law enforcement. And I think it served me well throughout my career.
I think if I were to give advice, it would be similar to what DA Sparr said, which is expose yourself to as many things as possible. Because until you really know everything that's out there, there are so many nuanced jobs and positions and things that you can do that are really interesting, but you don't know about it until you see it and experience it. So like job shadowing, even if you don't get paid to do it. And I think that's the second piece of advice is, well, you're thinking about money and how you're going to do things. One, state school, great job. I did not do that for law school, and that's a regret that I have. Think about school, think about how much it costs you. But then when you're surrounded by a lot of noise, so a lot of people making decisions and thinking about what they're going to do, it's blocking out the noise of others and what they want to do and thinking about what you want to do, researching it and finding a way to do it. So one of the things I experienced in law school was a lot of people who wanted to work at big firms where they were going to make tons of money. And I had to keep saying, I don't want that. I don't want to make tons of money. I want to have a job that has meaning and I can still do it and not be an individual that has no money. So I had to research public service loan forgiveness, right? And I had to have the confidence that I had a plan, it was going to work, and it did. 10 years later, I was able to have those loans, which were a house mortgage, forgiven, right? So you can have a plan and have confidence in it, but block out the noise, block out what other people are telling you your path should be, and just follow the one that you have passion for.
Say probably it's okay not to know the answer. In my line of work is the fire department. That's what people pay to do, is come to fix their problem. And sometimes you may not be able to fix their problem, or sometimes you don't know what the problem is right away. And what seems to be more impactful is how you treat them. So if you're nice, people remember that. Kind of some of the things that we talk to our paramedics about are some of the compliments or suggestions we get from people are, give someone a ride to the hospital and they'll say, oh, the paramedics were so nice. You look on the report and they missed 3 IVs and the vitals were out of whack. They didn't remember that. They remembered that the paramedics were really, really nice. And we'll get other calls where, hey, they did all the skills were great. We had a good patient outcome, but the patient felt that they didn't have great bedside manner. They're a little abrasive. And we'll get a complaint over that. So, again, we're expected to come there and fix your problem. But it seems what people remember more is how you treat them. So I think that's one of the things. And the other is just, you're not nearly as strong as you think you are, especially in our line of work. When I first started, nothing really bothered me, the calls we went on. And then your life changes. And kids. And then all of a sudden I go on calls with kids and it was like, holy man, this is a little different animal now. My grandparents got old. So then you start going on calls with elderly people. It affects you a little different. So I would tell a younger self as well, it's okay to be vulnerable and realize things will kind of hit you different as you go through your career.
The advice I got from a military leader was very simple. Be where you're supposed to be and do what you're supposed to do. So really, it is very simplistic, but regardless of what career you choose, that employer made a commitment to you, be loyal to them. And know that your career, whatever it is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And you're not going to always get the promotion you wanted or the position you wanted. But don't blame anybody else but yourself. Look in the mirror and say, okay, how can I be the only choice next time this promotion comes up or this position comes up? And you will get it. I guarantee you'll get it. But don't start blaming other people. Look in the mirror and just constructively criticize yourself, and you will be successful.
Talk to people about their careers, engage in leadership roles, and don't wait for the perfect moment to start something. Part of me getting into public service, I didn't know what I wanted to do after undergrad, wasn't AmeriCorps, talked with retired people. I'm like, maybe I want to be a doctor. And I talked to doctors and like, I operated on kidneys, and maybe I want to go to business school. And people are like, I drafted real estate contracts. I talked to lawyers, especially government lawyers, and they said, I made a difference. I had interesting or different problems every day, and I got to be hands-on and I got to make a difference. I'm like, all right, I'm doing that. So talk to people about their careers, what they found valuable, and what kind of syncs or vibes with you, with what your initial thought of, do I want to make money or do I want to do what my family did, to say, this is the type of reward that I want for my career. And, you know, hear from somebody who's already past their career or mid-career or old like us, what they would have done differently or what they like about what they do. And that helped steer me in a direction. Leadership role as a public servant, in public service, people will look to you as a leader and integrity, regardless of what your role is. So the leadership doesn't have to be something about the law or your field. It could just be something you're passionate about, and probably better to just show you're passionate. It could be math, it could be a sports field, it could be some other hobby, but just developing leadership skills, and that'll help you develop the integrity and kind of the commitment that is needed for a public servant. And the third is don't wait. And this is something I do, so I should listen to my own advice. People have told me this, and it's true. There's never a perfect moment to do something. You might say, I want to switch paths, or I want to learn something new, or I want to start this new program. You're like, but this other thing isn't quite right. You know, I have this thing in the way. I'm not sure if I should do it. There's never the perfect time to do something. If you're interested in trying something new, don't wait for the perfect moment. Start it now.
Cool. I do want to have a few moments for questions from the audience. They can thank God for coming. How long have you had it on the holster?
It was the mutual. Right.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
My question is, I'm probably saying things in Oshkosh work really, really well. Like what you said, in other places, there's a lot of erosion of public trust. So like cities like Minnesota recently in the past, challenges like the federal government's ICE response or the George Floyd situation. If you were to put yourself in those positions that you hold there, what does that do to public trust there, or even here in Oshkosh? And how would you suggest steps moving forward in terms of public trust?
I'm assuming that's you looking at me. So one of the things that is incredibly important for us, and it goes back to what I talked about earlier, is you can't be on your game. Just start to be on your game when you need it now. We do a lot of work within the community for our community to trust what we do. There's always going to be a group of people that don't like cops. There's just always going to be that. But we spend a lot of work to build trust within the community to where there's it's a big, strong base for us that the members of our community as a whole look at us and go, oh, that's them. We're okay because of them. If I was the chief of police in Minneapolis, there would be a lot of. Let me start this over. Minneapolis has had a lot of issues a long time, and they didn't do the homework they needed to do in order to be successful within their community. I believe when it was most critical, when bad things are going on, we do a lot of work here to build into our community, to build that trust. And I think that serves us well. Even when we make a mistake, it serves us well. During some of the demonstrations during the George Floyd riots that we had here, we had hundreds and hundreds of people that were demonstrating, that were protesting, but we didn't have anybody get hurt. We didn't have any buildings get burned down. We didn't break anything. People were able to exercise their First Amendment rights, and they felt like they were heard. And at the end of the day, we went back to normal. And that's a testament to the community. It's also a testament, I think, to how people believe in their government and how it works here in Oshkosh. So you gotta do all the work ahead of time before bad stuff happens.
This next question is for the lawyers. How do prosecutors and defense attorneys overcome differences of being on the opposite sides of a case? Do you try to maintain positive relationships outside of work?
Let me get out of the way.
You wanna do you have your analogy that you always use.
What's that?
You have your analogy that you always use. Do you want to?
Yeah. So actually, this is something I talk about a lot, because I think a lot of times people have an expectation about how this is from movies, from TV, and mostly it's not like that. But at least here, it's not like that. And I think it varies from place to place. It can vary a little bit based on the size of the community or the legal community as well. But one of the things I always talk about, especially with younger students, is there's this old like Looney Tunes episode, and it's a wolf and a sheep. They're waiting in line to punch a time clock, and they're talking about like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? And they're having this conversation. They punch in, and their job apparently is the wolf chases the sheep around. And so then they're doing their job. The wolf is trying to eat the sheep, and then the bell goes off. They walk out, and they're like, all right, we'll see you tomorrow. And it's kind of like that there is a time where you are on the clock, where you are your opponents for sure. Not that means you need to try to kill each other, but also I think I would say that we have, as prosecutors, I have more in common with defense attorneys than I do with like 98% of the population. So when people seem very surprised that we could get along or even socialize, I have a softball team that I'm on right now that has a couple of public defenders and a former public defender on it, and some people from my office, some law enforcement people. That sounds strange to a lot of people, but it really shouldn't. It makes sense. And it's something where when we go to do a case, we have, in most situations, a pretty good idea of what a certain type of case might be worth. And I might come in and say, I think this should be 90 days jail. And somebody from the public defender's office might say, well, I think it should be 45 or 60 or something like that. It's somewhat rare. It definitely happens, but it's less common than you would think that we walk in and we're asking for life in prison and they come in and say what should be nothing. A lot of times we're pretty close to start with. And so I think that makes getting along a lot easier. And the other thing I talk about before I spend too much time occupying all this space, I think there is a spectrum of like the extreme defense attorneys and the extreme prosecutors, and the people that are really good at it are somewhere towards the middle. They understand the other side. They can speak in a language that makes sense to the other side. And ultimately, we don't always agree. We have trials. I had a trial with a former prosecutor that used to be my supervisor, a murder case that we did about 15 months ago. We tried the case. It was a couple days, and the jury went out to deliberate. We had this awkward bro hug. And we had just tried a homicide case, and we still appreciated each other. We're still friends. We were waiting for a verdict, and somebody's life was going to be significantly impacted, regardless of what that outcome was. Not as much ours as other people's, but we were feeling it as that trial was going on. But that doesn't mean you hate somebody. It doesn't mean you treat them poorly.
Yeah, and I would say across the board, we get along between the two, at least for my office and the DA's office. And I can say that's a local thing more so than anywhere else. When I was in private practice and I was offered the position in Winnebago, I knew nothing about Winnebago County. I was up practicing in Outagamie, Brown, other locations, and an attorney who had been in the office I am now in said, it's adversarial as it should be, but not the same way as other places. I've certainly practiced where prosecutors don't want to talk to me. They tell me they don't have to share anything, but nothing gets done then. It's really a huge waste of time. In talking about public trust, but with the individuals that I work with, a lot of them are very skeptical. If you have any meaningful relationships with someone on the other side, and I try to explain to them that those relationships are how we really just get down to the work. Think about going in and any awkward situation that you've had and how awful that feels. The more comfortable you are and the more that you can communicate efficiently and effectively with the other side, the better the work's going to be that's going to get done. And we're all really working towards the same thing. The DA's office doesn't want more work and to have the people that are coming in keep repeating coming in. I want to help my client get in a better position. So we're working towards really the same end, which is a community that's in the best place possible. The one thing that I would say does get difficult as I've worked in different counties and with different individuals is that as a public defender, my goals are always client driven, right? So my duty is to that one client. So there can be points where we get pressure to work towards like a bigger picture, right? That's the idea, but I can't. I'm working with that client and what that individual wants. So sometimes I'm sure the perspective from the opposite side is that I am being unreasonable or I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. I can't set aside my client's goals. So that's the one place where I would say it probably gets the most tense or awkward.
So I did both roles and I get along with myself fine. And it actually helps me now. It actually helps me great in my third role as a commissioner that I can kind of put on both hats. And I don't know sports that much. Well, so it's funny when I make the analogy, but I think about it like a football game and people from different teams, somebody wins, somebody loses, but they're hugging or high-fiving at the end. And they know we're all doing our job. We all are going for the same goal. Granted, we want our team to win maybe. But they're like, you're doing your job, great catch. I'm doing my job. Hey, you had a great block. Which I won't go too much farther than football. It's like, I didn't even have to do that. Like the precursor, but it's like you think of the end of the football game, people are high-fiving, they know each other, they're doing the same thing and they respect, hey, that's your role, that's my role. The game wouldn't work well if that didn't work. And we're not really playing a game for our job. Our job is justice. And we're coming in from a different perspectives, individual liberty, community safety, use of resources, but I get along with myself well being on both sides and people are like, how could you be on either side? And in the end, I'm glad that I was on both because now in this role, I can think about both of those perspectives and how a lot of times they overlap toward the same goal of justice.
Terrific. One last round of applause, please. And then, so like the WISAC, WIAC, and Flips fellows, we're gonna go upstairs in a moment. Thank you all for coming. If there's any food left, please take it. Thank you for coming out. If you have any questions, have a good night.